Okay, so in this video I'm going to talk about how we do our scripting, how we do our planning. If we've got an idea for a video, we need a script. We need to start somewhere. We don't pick up a camera and make a video. We don't throw a whole lot of pictures in an edit software and make a video. We start with a plan. And our plan is what we want to communicate, what we want to achieve. We might want to change someone's mind, or we might want to communicate some new information or communicate a point of view. There's many reasons. Regardless, what we need is a script. And if our video is spoken word based, like I'm talking now, how many words are we going to have? So it's important to understand that the average speaking rate of someone when they're talking is 100 to 130 words a minute. I'm probably talking at about 150 now because I'm going off script, because I'm talking off the top of my head. So we tend to talk a bit quicker when we do that. But on average, we should plan for around 100 to 130 words a minute. So that means for a 5-minute video, we've only got 500 to 700 words. That's not a very long essay. That's very short. That's a few paragraphs of text, basically, to get across our message. So efficiency needs to be planned from the beginning, and that's why we need a script. So one of the most common formats for a script when working in this kind of mode is the AV script. And an AV script at a really simple level has 2 columns, which is one column for what we hear, the audio, and one column for what we see, the vision, hence the AV script. This is a very common form for a script in news and in documentary. And I actually like to include a time column as well, so we can plan out, if we have 5 minutes, how efficient are we using that, so we don't end up with a 4-minute introduction and then have no time for our body or our conclusion. And it's quite easy to take the paragraphs we've written and use a stopwatch to record how long they'll be, and we can actually plan forward for the time in our script. So you can see here I've written a really simple script, which is about a voiceover. In some parts it's a shot of a presenter talking to a camera. In others there's a little title sequence with music. You can see there's still images mentioned of the French Revolution and the Russian Revolution for this story. So if you take what you're trying to communicate and break it down into paragraphs like this, we end up with basically a blueprint. So we can collect all of our pictures, we can record all of our voiceover or shoot our piece talking to camera, and then put it together in an editing package. And if you Google AV script format, you'll find many, many examples. This is a common format we use across many, many different industries. And at the simplest level, like I've said, like one here, where it's got the audio and the vision. Some actually have shot numbers or shot types, some that I see here. And more complex ones tend to go into things like columns for graphics, columns for music, separate columns for when the time starts and the time ends, so you get a cumulative time of each sequence there. These are all fine. At the simplest level, like I said though, the audio and the vision, it becomes a communication tool. And it also becomes a tool you can look at and you can put some options in. You could put in the vision column, you could put some links to images you think might work. So by the time you get to the edit, you can try a few different ones. You could put a column here for your attribution. Now that might be a really clever way to approach attributing, as you'll see in the copyright video that accompanies this one, to collect that. So by the time you get to the end, you can put it all together. Either way, the AV script across industries is a common way to work in this mode. And most of the software that we use, simple software like Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, very simple to set up a table. My recommendations though is to make sure that you keep your paragraphs relatively short. If a paragraph goes beyond 100, 200 words, it stops being usable as a way to break down the vision against the words. Usually if you change vision every sentence, change paragraph every sentence, and that will make sense in laying out your AV script. I tend to like nowadays, especially when I'm working with others, to use Google Sheets because it's a live document that different people can edit at the same time. We can put comments and we can put notes and we can put links, and all of that, it becomes a living, breathing document that we keep updated right through to when we deliver. Whatever you do, just remember this is a communication tool and this is a planning tool. So make it clear and make it obvious what the different bits mean. Another one that we can use is the storyboard. And I know a lot of people like to jump straight into the storyboard and storyboard everything. I've put up here a really simple storyboard that I found using Creative Commons image searching, and you can see the attribution that I've put on that down the bottom. But I tend to only use storyboards when I need to. Storyboards are for where there's a complicated visual sequence that I couldn't get across in words. I used to use them quite a lot when I made television commercials. I used to use them for title sequences where I'd create a montage of a lot of different images and the different zooms and the different moves. It was necessary to create a storyboard as a communication tool to the cinematographers or as a communication tool to the motion graphic artists. But unless it's really needed, I tend to leave the storyboard out of this kind of planning at this level. Sometimes though, if I do include a storyboard, and if it's really an important shot that I want to look in a certain way, I can add a column to my AV script, and I can have little frames of the story that I want to show in that AV script. So the storyboard, again, you can Google this and you can find all kinds of information about the storyboard. If you're not visually minded, don't think it's a have to do. Certainly in the film and television industry, we do them when we need to, when a sequence is complicated, not just because we have to. And sometimes the kind of video we're making or the kind of film we're making isn't something we can pre-plan. So documentaries or in investigative journalism or interview-based videos where we want to ask a whole lot of people questions to then edit into a sequence to tell our story. Well, this isn't something we can AV script. We don't want to do that. That's not why we interview. We interview to get authentic points of view. So in this instance, a different method comes into play, which is generating question lists, generating topic lists, generating theme lists. And through that, we tend to generate interview footage to then, hopefully in post-production, find the story. So it's a very different way to work. But if you're going to work this way, think about who you're interviewing and why they're important to your audience or to your subject. Is it their authority on the matter? Is it that they're the normal person, the voice of the streets? Is it because they're a different point of view? Like, why is it that you're asking these people the questions? Tend to write questions that are open. So a question that you can get a yes or no answer to is a closed question. So I always like to use the example, I could ask someone, do you like the weather today? And they can say, yes. And that's a really great interview. It's really going to come across well. The way I can take that closed question and make an open question is I could say to someone, tell me what you think about the weather today. And that's not a question they could say yes or no to. They actually have to say, well, I think the weather today is sunny, and it is sunny today. So those kind of things, if you get this right, you can get answers that can be used to give context to what they're saying as well. And finally, there's a few other tools. So the script is a really good tool. Storyboard's a tool. A question list is a tool. These are all procedural tools in a way that we use in filmmaking. But two other ones that are really important is the log of images I've referred to. So if you're going to be using images, create a log as you go. Create a log as you collect them. Even if you don't use them, keep them in the log, because you can audit that log later on to make the list of attributions that you will need to put at the end of your video. I tend to use Excel spreadsheets for that, just to have long lists of, I use this image in this sequence, and here's all the Creative Commons info I need. The other thing that you might want to do with dealing with people is release forms. And a release form, at a very simple level, is just a document that your interviewee signs that says it's okay to use their image in your video. It's as simple as that. You can find these all over the web. There's examples of them. But a release form's good general practice when interviewing people or dealing with human subjects. There are also release forms for copyright. So say you really had a copyrighted image you wanted to use, that your whole video was relying on showing an Andy Warhol painting, for instance. You could write to the Andy Warhol Foundation and ask for a release, and they might give you a release, or they might give you a fee for that release. And if that happened, you would then have to hold that copyright release in your paperwork so that you had evidence that you were given permission to use copyrighted pictures. Anyway, for all of these documents, keep them organized, keep them available. If working with a team, I suggest using a collaborative environment like Google Drive or Dropbox to make sure that everyone can see them at all times. And I hope this helps you plan forward for your video.